What's up, YouTube? Deaddraw here, bringing another video today. I want to go over a tier list, or kind of what like post Darkwing Blast, now that there has been the YCS Minneapolis and we kind of seen some things come out there. I want to go over the tier list and see what's going on, kind of let you guys know what I think the best deck calls right now of the format are, and what are the best options, what are not the best options, etc. So let's go over this. First off, we're going to start with our Sword Soul. This deck just fell off so much for a while ago. We're just going to put it in the Rogue format. This deck still does like a lot of really good things, but I just think that in the Rogue is okay. Um, Now the Drytron stuff right now, I don't think it's super good, okay? We do got some stuff coming out that's gonna make this deck better later, but with just the Darkwing Blast stuff, I don't think anything. Here, Punk again with the ban list and everything, it just kind of got blah. Salamangreat is Salamangreat, it still does things. Yeah. Plunder, this is one like I almost want to put in tier 2, but like it's pretty fallen off. But I think like this deck is like still a deck that I can play. Tier 1 decks or tier 2 decks definitely have a hard time with it. I do think plunders in general like just have like are kind of hard to play around. The deck is just kind of like strange in my opinion, so that's just, but yeah, Plunder, I just think that is probably not one of the best options. It might be able to be put here like because of like the Brave package and whatnot, but we'll put it there. Now, beyond the Pendulum, or just Pendulums in general, I think Pendulum's got the Draco Slayer support. I think it can do some things, so I definitely think that's a deck you should watch out and prepare for. I definitely think you should be prepared for knowing what the Pendulum cards do. At Pendulum being just the type of deck that like has been in the past just been insane, and with the right support it can be insane again, so just be careful. I definitely think you should watch out for the new Draco Slayer stuff. It is a thing. Despia, I want to put him probably, I think it's a solid tier 2. I don't think it's like quite good enough. I mean, maybe if you pair with the Tearlaments stuff that you can put at 1.5, but I just don't think it's as good as the other decks like Tearlaments and stuff, because it locks you into those fusions and it really like it makes you um really like locked in. I think that's one of the big downfalls of the deck. And like at the time it was nuts. Obviously I even played this when the deck was really good, but right now I think it's just kind of fallen off here. Next we're gonna go into Marincess. I'm gonna put it right into solid tier 2. um for me, you're gonna see a lot of things like in tier 2 that I think are just decks that are viable, or decks that I think that can do stuff but just aren't as like good as the other ones, but are a little bit better than Rogue, and I think that you might see a little bit more things squeak in. So that's kind of what I wanted you guys to know about this level 2 I'm doing. Things might just squeeze in because they're a bit better than tier 3, like our Rogue category. But yeah, I think Rencess is just one of those hand trap cyber stacks right now. I think that it's probably like it might be better than Mathmech, because the bestial stuff really hurts this deck, almost making it like not playable. But right now, until we see that bestial stuff like take over the format completely, it's playable. But the bestial stuff is being played a lot already, so be careful for that. I feel like this deck, if you're on it, I would suggest moving into like something a little bit better, or that's not hit so much from the Abyssal stuff. Chamber Dragon Maid. Now, this is one I don't know too much about, but my friend's been testing. I've lost some matches. We've been testing. I think this deck's actually pretty good, so that's something to watch out for. Just keep an eye out. Heroes. This is a deck that like between I want to put like between these two. I think that Dark Law, just being Dark Law, like this deck always kind of sees like something in a top cut at a regional, maybe a smaller regional, but it usually sees something there. And I think Dark Law, just being as powerful as that card is, definitely can make this deck squeak into some top cuts. And I think that you definitely get some cheap wins. ABC, boom, I'm just not gonna really talk about it. Here we go. Dimension Shifter deck. Exo Sisters. So I really think that I've played this deck. I have tested this deck. I think that this deck is pretty solid, but I feel like you're really dependent on drawing your shifter. I feel like if you don't draw shifter, you're gonna have a pretty hard time winning with this deck, just due to the fact that you haven't stunned your opponent enough. Because I feel like the cards that like stun in this deck don't do as good a job as other decks could. So I do think it's a good deck. It's solid. Martha's an amazing card. Just being able to make it like a link, but I feel like with like you being restricted into Exo Sisters for the rest of the turn, after Marthaing, or and then just like your limitations on what cards you have access to, I feel like this deck is probably not the best shifter deck of the format. Next, we'll talk about our Sprite Runick. This card, like these cards are nuts together. This is definitely a tier one. This is like, you know, definitely one of the best decks of the format in my opinion. You play it, especially like when you get into the list like Joshua Smith made. You see that like, you know, he went out without the hand traps, and that deck is so consistent. That like it is, you are gonna be playing. You're never gonna brick. You're never gonna like not be playable. It just doesn't happen. So like that's what I think is really insane about that deck. It's also like the runic cards are just access to a lot of cards, and all of them having the secondary effect that banishes just, even if it's one card off of runic tip, or if it's four off of destruction. It's nice to get cards out of your opponent's deck. Sometimes, you know, like I have definitely banished a super poly what that they were gonna draw and like have to break my board, but now they don't. Like I definitely think that like the banishing effect is really big, along with like how easy they are to control. Your downside is you don't get your battle phase. You've got to play a little bit slower. You got to maintain good play throughout the entire match. And for every game, and games are going to take longer, right? So that's the biggest thing. Also, time being a factor, like that really sucks. So yeah, with like I do think these decks are like, this deck is super good, but I don't think that it's like inherently the best deck right now though. And that will bring us to tier. I think this deck is actually just the best deck. Especially after Darkwing Blast, when they have the Ludicrous. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the guy who lets you negate summons, I think that makes him even more, that deck more insane. They have a really easy way to play around Nibiru now too with that card. And I just think that the deck's insane. It's gonna get even better with the Ishizu stuff. It's going to be a deck that is going to be just really dominant for a little bit. We've already seen like the last YCS Minneapolis, like the like amount of tier was pretty good. Like there's quite a bit of tier. But yeah, so like I definitely think Tearlaments is just like the best deck right now, especially with the Shizu stuff coming out in Mavens. That's like not even, that's like what, 2 weeks away maybe. So it's not very far. It's gonna be nuts. Now we got Flunder. Flunder, it's going to go back in front of Exo Sisters. We actually saw this in the finals of YCS Minneapolis. I definitely think this is the best shifter deck. Not only because like you know, like shifter really doesn't matter. It actually benefits you banishing your Rabinas and stuff like that. Like and it can just like it can really like be good for you. The other thing about this, a lot of decks are kind of coming around to no hand traps. A lot of decks remaining Lava Golem, meaning that if they end on the Wind Statue, the Lava Golem is still specialing, so you're not going to be able to tribute their two monsters, which really sucks. And then not being as many hand traps, this deck is able to set up pretty well, though. It does have, you know, it doesn't have like the best matchups. It's just really good. It's really good at stunning. It's super consistent at stunning. It's good at playing around like one hand trap. It's good at stuff like that, especially with like I said, hand traps are being like less used in the format. This deck becomes better. And it being one of the few decks that do use hand traps, like people are not going to be on crossout or anything like that as much. So I think that this deck is just the best shifter deck to play. If you are stuck on, you don't have Runick Spright or you don't have Tearlaments, I think this is probably the third best deck you could play. Like if you were solely looking at what are the best decks to play, I think this is probably one of the better ones. Just keep in mind that it's not as good as the other two. It's significantly worse than these decks. Um, It's just that it stuns really good. It's really good at what it does, but it's very limited at what it does at the same time. So I definitely think it's really good though. Next thing, so we're gonna go into Dragon Link here. I actually think Dragon Link is probably here with the Abyssal stuff, or if you want to go in, like we can say the Abyssal deck. I think that it's still really good, really viable. Uh, I I think it becomes even better with the Bestial stuff, and the deck is actually pretty nuts. So this is something I'd look into. This is something that I've already been testing against, and it's doing things like it's not like a deck that I can just beat easy with Runick Spright or something like that. That is a deck that I can lose to anytime for sure. So like you got to be careful there. Sprite tier. I think this is 1.5. I think that this is it might these two are cross like probably pretty close to being the same, but I think that like with Kiraz being a level 2, with Kit being a level 2, and just the sprite stuff being as good as it is, and having to either bait hand traps or being able to let you play around hand traps, is really good in the deck. Revolt is really good, obviously. Like Revolt's just an insane card. So I think that like this deck is actually something you should look out for, look into. Obviously, just know how to beat Tri-Brigade. Like that's really important. The live twin, I don't think it's as good as like a tier 1 engine. I wouldn't put it in the tier 1 engine for Runick. I want to put this in like a more one tier 1.5. This is like I have tested both the Aperia and the live twin version of Runick Spright. And I just like I think that the live twin stuff, first off, like it clashes the normal summon. So like the normal summon isn't always gonna go off. So for example, if you didn't open any normals and you need to like make your fusion monster first, and then you draw it off of Runick Spright, or sorry, Runick Fountain. If you draw off of that and draw one of your live twin cards, it's not going to be able to summon the other one from the deck. So that's one of my big downfalls there. I don't like how it clashes that. And where the Aperia, you're always going to be drawing one, Cap Shell, you're always going to be drawing one, so it's like really good. But I do think this engine is good, but like I said, that's one of the downfalls. The other downfall is that it takes up it takes up 3 extra deck slots. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but in a deck like this, like it really is. And I think that there's better options and better things to play in the side, especially with Lilith's pop against like Tearlaments being pretty bad most of the time. I feel like there's just better things you could be playing, so that's what I'm kind of going for. This is the Rika stuff. I really don't know much about this deck. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've only played it against it a handful of times. This is something that I definitely need to be doing some more looking into personally. But this deck's good. I don't want to put it in 1.5 just because I don't know as much about it. I will put it in 2. Um, I think that's pretty like much it for what I wanted to go over, because like most of this other stuff is looking like it's gonna be like rogue or tier 3. Like I think like the water stun deck, I think there's better things to play than it, but it's sure like you can put it in tier 3 or at the very bottom of 2. um but like I don't really think there's like that much else to go over. I think these are like the really important decks of the format, things that like you would really should look out for. um and like these are probably what the format's shaping up to be a more. But yeah, like every like Yu-Gi-Oh can change. We have Mavens coming out so fast, so be careful for that. Striker like might be a little bit good like better of a deck, like, but like right now it's definitely just nothing. So yeah, that's what I really have to say about that. I know like some people might be worried about like your DDD or your Dynamorphia, or like your Knights, but I just like I don't want to go over everything and just like explain why it's rogue. For the most part, it's just if it's rogue, it's either format dependent, like like Sword Soul was super good, nothing happened to the deck, but it's just nothing now, right? Like um nothing like really insane happened to the deck, and it's just like these decks aren't as good. But yeah, obviously if you disagree, I'm sorry. I could be wrong too, like there's a lot of things in Yu-Gi-Oh where it's just hard to tell what's going to be good, what's not going to be good. And there's so many things, like I think that like all of these decks right now are decks that you can go to a regional and you're going to see doing decent. Like these are all decks that you can see doing decent, so that's why I've kind of brought them up. I think these are the ones that you should look into, um, and whatnot. But I could be missing stuff. So anyway, guys, I really do appreciate you watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and we'll get back to you. And we'll get some more content out soon. Thank you.